I'm Debbie with doitlikedebbie.com, a lifestyle blog on doing more and saving more, helping you to live a full life. In the interest of sharing information, my main goal is to always try to help people in a similar situation. So I wanted to document my immigration story. I'm applying so that my husband can come and live with me in the United States. And so in the process, you choose between the K1 and the marriage visa or marriage green card. I'll be kind of using them interchangeably as I go along here. Today we'll be getting into deciding between the K1 fiancé visa and our marriage green card visa, and why we chose to go the route of filing for the marriage visa. Before we get into it, in preparations of filing, I had been watching a lot of YouTube videos online, and there was a community of people that were sharing their stories, and I found it really helpful. There's value to be taken from everyone's story just because you're able to find out tips, what worked for them, and that's not necessarily listed on immigration websites. So, the K1 or the marriage visa, which one is right for you? I will start off by saying the K1 only works if you are not yet married, and the marriage visa only works and triggers at the prompting of marriage. For the K1, the checklist is they are your fiancé. You have not yet gotten married. Maybe if you got married abroad somehow and it's not recognized in the United States, okay, you can get away with it. So you're not married. You file with the USCIS. I believe you file the 129F. That takes I've seen a lot of websites that average it out 7 months of processing. They then come over, they have 4 months from approval time to come into the US. You have to get married in 90 days. So therefore the 90-day fiance, that's kind of where they get that name from. And if you don't get married to your foreign spouse then has to leave the country again. Otherwise it's considered false immigration. If you do get married, they are in the country and then can apply for an adjustment of status. And I believe that's the I-485. Congruently, you can apply for a work authorization if you want them to start trying to work. Typically, people file the K1, of course, if they're not married, but also if they want to speed up the process. So they want their spouse here as soon as possible, or their fiance here as soon as possible so they can start their lives together. The one reason why we didn't choose that, or a couple reasons. One was that it's more expensive. I think you save about $800 doing it the marriage visa. For the K1, it's above $2,000 for all the filing fees over the course of time. We'll enter the marriage visa. My husband and I decided that, he could afford to stay a little bit longer abroad. So we went with the marriage visa. I believe filing fees are about $1,200, and I believe processing times is about 10 to 13 months on average. So it'll take your foreign spouse about a year before they can come over. So what triggers the marriage visa is a marriage, first of all. Once you are married, you are not eligible anymore for the K1 fiancé visa. You are married, and that is your proof that you are in a bona fide relationship with that person. So they are now considered your alien relative, and you will then file the I-130, the I-130A. You as a US citizen will have to prove that you are a US citizen. So that's like a birth certificate or a passport. And then you will do a bunch of supporting documentation to support the bona fide marriage. We're doing consular processing, which means that my husband is abroad. He's not in the US, so we're not waiting for any kind of approvals together. We're actually separate, and he will have to deal with the embassy after the form that I fill out. And by the way, you can get all forms online by going to uscis.gov and looking for your respective filing forms. The government does recommend that when you do fill out the forms, you do it electronically. Even if you have good handwriting, it is always suggested that you're filling out that writable PDF. We decided that we were going to get married here in the United States. So he came in on a tourist visa, which you are allowed to do. He comes from an ESTA visa country, so it's a matter of paying like $12 or something and filing, and then they're able to come in for up to 90 days and then have to go home. Of course, that's because the tourist visa only comes in 90-day stints. It's not considered any kind of like immigration fraud if you just come in, get married, and then intend to leave. If you stay on a tourist visa, that's when it seems like it's a little bit more iffy, because maybe you were always trying to skip the line, and immigration, that'll look bad to immigration. The other things to consider while choosing between a K1 or a marriage visa would be, other than filing fees and those prices, would be denial rates. So the K1 and then staying and applying for the adjustment of status is a bit more risky. 37% currently for the denial rate for a K1. Other things to consider is it's a little bit risky if your foreign or fiance wants to leave the country during the time where it needs to be processed. So if they want to leave the country, say a family member has gotten ill or they need to attend to some business, if they leave the country, which I'm not even sure if they can, the US maybe won't let them back in. It's a bit of a gamble. And especially with, the immigration laws going back and forth nowadays, it's just always best to make sure that you aren't doing anything non-compliant with the law. So always be checking return tickets home, or, consulting an attorney if you have questions. We didn't want to chance that, so we decided that we will get married and we will start the process that way. There's also travel restrictions for the marriage visa. Coming into the country is a little bit hard because you are having to deal with the borders, who will then know that you have a pending I-130 in process. So they don't want you to overstay your 90-day welcome when you do visit. Usually people do visit on a tourist visa at that point, if they're visiting their US spouse while their I-130 is processing. There's countries where that's a little bit more okay, but expect to be scrutinized at the borders whenever you are coming in or going out. That's just how it is. Other things to consider, again, denial rates. I'm not exactly sure what it is for the marriage visa, but if you're doing the consular processing, which means the foreign spouse is abroad, I believe the general consensus online with people's stories is that it's a bit easier. There may be the agents or the officers that are reviewing cases are maybe not as stringent. Not to say that they're not looking, but it's just a more fluid system. The officers in America are really scrutinizing everyone's application, vetting to make sure it's okay. You just have to be very meticulous when you're filling out forms, because any mistakes, like not signing, means that you have to go through the whole process again, and appeals, while they could work, they take a long time, and they really slow down the process of you being together and having your spouse here or your fiance here. Really cross your T's, dot your I's when you're filing. My husband and I got our marriage certificate back, and now we're sending off the I-130. Hopefully in about 6 or 7 months, fingers crossed, we will hear back from the NVC so that we can start the process on his end of coming over. So in conclusion, file the K1 if you want your fiance, who you're not yet married to, here as quick as possible, and you have like a bit more money to shove out. If you have a longer timeline and you want to save a little bit of money, go with the marriage green card or the marriage visa. I've kind of been using them interchangeably. I encourage you guys all to watch different videos across the board, and you will pick up a few tips from each person, just because everything is so unique, whether it's the countries, the circumstances, whatever it is. Everyone's situation varies, but we're all trying to get to the same goal of getting our fiance or our spouse here in a seamless amount of time without the headache of appeals or going back and forth or denials. It's heartbreaking, and we love our family members, so we just want them here with us. I think it's really important to be in support of each other, and not everyone has means for an attorney, so it's nice to be able to then build a support system online and share information that's not always listed on websites. If you have any questions, please comment below. Thank you for watching, and I will continue to keep documenting as filings proceed.